Direct from rivals and Yahoo Sports, this is the BamaInsider.com podcast with your host, Kyle Anderson. Recruiting nuggets from Andrew Bone, the inside scoop from team writer Tony Sakalis, and information you crave on Alabama football. Welcome to the Bama Insider Podcast. Now, here he is, coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the managing editor of BamaInsider.com, Kyle Henderson.
Welcome to the BamaInsider.com podcast. It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Thanks for joining us. Selection Sunday, March 11th, 2018. Alabama is in the basketball tournament. First time since 2012. Avery Johnson has taken the Crimson Tide to the NCAA basketball tournament, where Alabama will be the number 9 seed taking on number 8 Virginia Tech. In just a few minutes, we'll have our basketball correspondent, Jordan Harper, joining us on the program as we break down March Madness, break down the bracket. We're going to talk about Alabama basketball, the good, the bad, their recent performance in the SEC basketball tournament, the brilliance of Collin Sexton. But first, we're going to play a soundbite from Avery Johnson. We talked with Alabama basketball coach earlier in the day during Selection Sunday after his team landed the number 9 spot. Here's Avery Johnson talking about his Alabama basketball program reaching the NCAA basketball tournament.
Just your initial reaction to seeing your name come across that screen.
So many thoughts were going through my mind. I can remember the first time I got a phone call from my agent about Alabama wanting to interview me for this coaching job, and I was thinking, Alabama? But that was one of the first things that went through my mind, was that first interview, and to see where we are now in year 3 of our program. All of the guys that, like Dejon Ingram and Dante Hall, that could have decommitted and gone to other schools, but they hung in there with us and gave our staff a chance. And the guys that committed later or transferred here, or the freshmen that we have on our team and our entire coaching staff and support staff, it just means so much to so many people, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
What did your team show when they went to St. Louis with so much on the line, knowing that you need to probably pull off a win or two to make this happen for sure?
Well, they showed that they can respond when their backs are against the wall. And now, it's a single elimination tournament, and probably was a good thing for us, because a lot of things that we talked about during the season, we just weren't clicking on a consistent basis. And a lot of the areas that we needed to improve in just weren't getting there at an accelerated rate. But we went to St. Louis and played some terrific basketball, had a 10, 12-point lead on Texas A&M with 10 minutes to go, and obviously Collin shot will go down in history. And then we, had a pretty dominant performance against Auburn before we kind of ran out of gas, especially without Dante in Game 3. But we showed that we could be a really good basketball team when we play the right way.
What do you think about traveling all the way to Pittsburgh, and just what do you know about Virginia Tech at this point?
Traveling all the way to Pittsburgh, you know what? I would have gone to Italy for this game. Pittsburgh is, it's not that far, especially the way we travel. But we're just excited. Obviously, we don't know much about our opponent because, they're not in the SEC. But I have a lot of respect for Coach Buzz Williams and what he's done with Virginia Tech. And I know they're an outstanding team, and we'll have a chance to break them down tonight. It's going to be a long night tonight, lots of coffee tonight, but it's a good problem to have. We're just fired up. You saw the reaction of a lot of our players on social media, and they're ready to go. And we're ready to prove that we could be a really good, consistent team. And it's all about the first one, and it's really all about our first practice on tomorrow.
Coach Avery, you mentioned it. Unlike the NBA, it's one and done. Whether you're a 1 seed or a 16 seed, it's a one and done elimination. In the pressure that you played under this year, the schedule you played, you got to think you have potential to make a run.
Well, the main thing is it's not even about making a run for us. As I shared with our team, anything can happen. All right, we've obviously been counted out before. We hit a stretch at the end of the season that we all didn't expect. It wasn't. We weren't happy. It was painful. But I told them no pain, no gain. And we played in arguably the toughest conference with us getting 8 teams in. I know, Virginia Tech in their conference got in 9, but we take pride in playing in one of the toughest conference and playing one of the toughest schedules of anybody in the country. So now that our backs are against the wall and, we're an underdog in terms of winning it all, we have a chance to go out here and play well and play consistent, and who knows what's going to happen. But it's all about the first game. It's about the first 4 minutes of the first game and seeing how we can impose our will well on a team that we know is a very good team in Virginia Tech.
Real quickly, you know anything on Dante at this point, or is it still just a medical evaluation?
Yeah, it's still a medical evaluation. We'll reevaluate him on tomorrow and see where he is. But right now, he's just day-to-day.
Now we're on the line with our basketball correspondent for BamaInsider.com, Jordan Harper. Jordan, we've been talking about this day for a long time. Selection Sunday finally here. I mean, just open it up, man. What were your thoughts on Alabama making this NCAA basketball tournament?
It's since 2012 is their last NCAA tournament appearance, and they've had some extreme lows going through this time. And since 3 years ago when Avery Johnson first came in, and he said that NCAA is the first goal, and then to make the Final Four is the second goal. And he came so close his first 2 years, but he finally got over the hump in the third year, made a nice run the SEC tournament to do so, and now here they are. To wait 6 years to wake up on Selection Sunday and know that Alabama's name is going to be called just has to be bittersweet for all Alabama fans, including Avery Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, obviously what he's done for this program, you know, it really speaks volume, them reaching the basketball tournament. I think that they had to make the basketball tournament this year. There was no question, especially with the talent throughout the roster. Alabama lands up with the number 9 seed. They will play Virginia Tech on Thursday at 8:20 Central Time. And that's going to be, all 8-9 matchups are, in my opinion, toss-ups. But let's talk about this one a little bit. Alabama obviously trending upward towards the end of their season. I know they didn't have their best showing against Kentucky, but they were also missing, probably their best rebounder in Dante Hall for that game. But and Kentucky shut the lights out. But Alabama right now, let's talk about them. I mean, they're trending upward. What do you like about this team right now, Jordan? And let's talk about this first round matchup against the Hokies.
Well, you're right. Kentucky shot the lights out. Mainly Gabriel. In particular, he had the game of his life, hands down. And if it wasn't for him, that game would have been incredibly close because Alabama got off to a rough start. So did Kentucky. But once the second half hit, that was some fun basketball. That was back and forth. John Petty got hot. Sexton was playing well. And that's got to be the biggest takeaway from the end of the SEC tournament was John Petty finding his stroke again. If John Petty can he doesn't have to hit 5, 7, or 8 threes a game for Alabama to do well. Just hit 3 or 4, and that spreads the floor, gives Sexton some extra room to penetrate and kick. And if Petty's hitting threes, this team will be a headache for Virginia Tech. And if they make it past them, then Villanova, potentially there'll be a headache for them as well. And they are trending upwards. I like their confidence, their moxie. They're just having fun playing basketball again, Kyle. And we haven't seen that during that tough stretch, which it's not very fun. I've been a part of it as a coach. You get down on yourselves, and that's what it looked like they were doing. But now that they have confidence, big players are stepping up, such as Galen Smith. He had a strong outing, gave Avery Johnson another front court member that can come off the bench potentially and give good minutes. And they're going to have them against Virginia Tech because I've watched 3 or 4 Virginia Tech games completely this season. Most recently, the Notre Dame game in the ACC tournament, where they blew a 20-plus point lead against Notre Dame and lost by 6 ultimately. And Virginia Tech is a lot like Alabama. They're very inconsistent at times and throughout the season. They had extreme highs beating Duke and Clemson, North Carolina, but they've also had some extreme lows, losing to teams that it's embarrassing that they did with the type of talent and the coach that Buzz Williams is. But they have one player, Kevin Blackshear, that's over 6'6". Does that not sound a little like Auburn to you? They don't shoot the 3 well as Auburn, but they don't rebound well. But they're kind of the opposite shooting wise. They're 8th in the country in 2-point field goal percentage. They're very deadly off the bounce and a pull up mid range. every single one of their players can hit a three, but most of them are good off the bounce and good pull-up jump shooters. The way Alabama will have to win this game is they're going to have to dominate the offensive boards. Virginia Tech is not a good defensive team. They'll allow you to get out and run and put up some points on you, but they're going to have to dominate the offensive boards and make sure Virginia Tech doesn't get offensive boards themselves. So this could turn into a track meet because both teams really want to get out and run, as Virginia Tech scores 56% of their points in transition. So this could end up being a track meet up and down the floor, which could be very exciting watching Collin Sexton and Justin Gibbs go at it.
We're talking with Jordan Harper, our BamaInsider.com basketball correspondent. My name is Kyle Henderson. We're breaking down Alabama versus Virginia Tech. And one thing that I've noticed is it's kind of interesting. Virginia Tech's RPI is 61 overall. Alabama's is 42. Now, check this out. Virginia Tech on a neutral court, only 1-2. They've only played 3 games. They're 1-2 on the season. Alabama, though, 5-2 on a neutral setting. And I think we saw, them what they could do on a neutral court in St. Louis in the SEC tournament. So I like this matchup, and I do like Alabama in Pittsburgh. I thought we might have an opportunity to see them in Nashville, but going up to Pittsburgh, I don't think it's a bad draw. And as Avery Johnson told us earlier today, he'd go to Italy to play this game. He's so excited. It doesn't really matter, I mean, it's one and done right now, and the best team's got to show up. Let's talk about the strength and weakness of this Alabama basketball team, and then we can hit on, as you phrased it, the brilliance of Collin Sexton. But let's talk about the strength, and then let's talk about the weakness going into this first round matchup.
A huge strength is they have a leader on the court now. Collin Sexton has taken the reins as the leader. He's going to make all the plays happen. And that's something that you need in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you have to have a Kimball Walker type player to really advance, somebody that can just put the game on their shoulders and will you to victory like he did against Texas A&M at the end. And besides Collin Sexton, this team can get up and run. And that transition offense is their biggest strength because there's not many teams out there that can stop Alabama once they get running downhill. And you saw that against Auburn. Every time they got a rebound, either Herb Jones or John Petty or Collin Sexton was getting it out, and they were running the floor, driving all the way in, kicking it out, and they were hitting their threes. And if they do that or they go in for transition dunks or layups, there's not many teams that can run up and down the floor with Alabama with their size and athleticism. But if they can get out and run and hit their threes, they're going to be really tough to beat. But until they start rebounding consistently and hitting their free throws, they could easily be a one and done in the NCAA tournament and it not be even close. So, because in the tournament you really have to rebound, and free throws become so critical. You see games decided all the time in the NCAA tournament by a missed free throw or a missed 1-and-1, which are killer. And if you can't shoot better than 68% like Alabama does as a team, then you're not going to go very far. And those are two things that they really need to shore up before the NCAA tournament, which getting Dante Hall back healthy will help. Daniel Giddens grabbing 7 boards the other day was big for his confidence because he struggles in that regard, even though he's 6'11", 250. And Galen Smith, I mean, that's a pretty decent 3-headed monster in rebounding if they play to their potential. But it's just that they haven't recently. And if they don't rebound, then that forces Sexton and Petty to drop down and go after rebounds, which also leaves an open floor for transition offense if they don't get the rebound. So if they can shore up their rebounding and free throws, I really think that they could win the first round and may even put up a surprise game in the second round.
Let's talk about Collin Sexton and just the way that he's really elevated this team. He's elevated his play. What we're seeing right now from him, he's clearly one of the best players in the entire country. Talk about the brilliance of Collin Sexton, the true freshman.
Well, I told you earlier in the year, he's always been a lottery top player, but he's really turning into that lottery point guard. And I cannot fathom an NBA team that needs a point guard that would draft anybody over Collin Sexton right now. If you can see what this kid can do and bring to your team, I mean, if you pass him up, then the front office needs to be reevaluated, because this guy literally put Alabama on his shoulders against A&M, put them out to a big lead. They lost the lead, ultimately was down by 1 with 4.4 seconds, took it straight down the middle of the court in 4.4 seconds. I mean, just flying down there, did a finger roll from the free throw line. I mean, that's a clutch gene, and that's a playmaking ability that cannot be taught. It's just embedded into the player. And I don't know if you noticed this, Kyle, or not, but when you're watching him play, he gets pumped after a free throw. I mean, you see him make a free throw, he starts fist pumping, and he's ready to play defense. I mean, he just has that competitive edge that not many players have, and he just plays 100% every single game. You get his best effort every game. He never takes a game off. And now he's starting to show the scoring and the assists that he's capable of. Sure, he's always showed he could score 16 to 20 points a game. But now he's starting to get 4, 5, 6 assists a game, along with 4 or 5 rebounds. He's realized that he has to do more to help his team win. So he's going to give that 110% to do that. And ultimately what's been the difference is Coach Avery Johnson has started to play him more at the 2 and let Dazon run the starting point guard. They interchange throughout the game, but primarily against Texas A&M, you saw Dazon handling the ball, letting Collin Sexton maneuver around the defense, make the defense watch him, which got other guys open. But he also running off stagger screens or back screens, getting open threes, and being able to play without the ball. Because at times when he plays with the ball, the offense tends to get stagnant. So letting him run that position has really opened up this offense and got more people involved. So there's no mystery that this team revolves around Collin Sexton. And if it wasn't for Collin Sexton, this team would more than likely be in the NIT right now. They wouldn't have got their name called on Selection Sunday on TBS. They'd have gotten it called on ESPN2 around 8 o'clock to show that they're going to play another home game. So give me a player like Collin Sexton any day in the NBA if I'm a front office executive, because this kid just has the it factor that not a lot of players have.
We're talking with Jordan Harper of BamaInsider.com. He's our basketball correspondent, contributes to the website, does a fantastic job. We're breaking down the NCAA basketball tournament. Alabama, as the number 9 seed, will take on Virginia Tech on March 15th at 8:20 Central Time on TNT. Jordan, let's break down the East bracket. You got Villanova as the number 1. They will play most likely the winner of Virginia Tech and Alabama. And you also have West Virginia, who's the number 5 seed. They're taking on Murray State, who's a 12. You have Wichita State at the number 4 spot, taking on Marshall, the 13 seed. You also have Florida, and they will play the winner of SBU and UCLA. As the number 3 seed, you have Texas Tech taking on SFA. I believe who is SFA? I'm sorry, that's Stephen F. Austin, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Arkansas as the number 7 taking on 10 Butler, Purdue taking on Cal State Fullerton. So, I mean, the East bracket, I mean, I like Alabama's chances. Am I crazy by saying that? I mean, I like the way everything is setting up for the Crimson Tide. I know Villanova is going to be deep. I mean, they're the number 1 team. I mean, I got a ton of respect for them, but I like Alabama in this bracket.
Right. If I was looking through the bracket earlier after it came out, I like to see it on paper to determine which one is the bracket of death per se, and which one's the weakest. And I decided that the East is most likely the easiest bracket of them all, just because that I didn't see but one, besides the conference tournament champions that got the automatic bid from the mid-majors, I only saw one conference champion in that bracket, and that's Villanova. So if you don't have to face any of those top Power 8 conference champions in your bracket, then you have a very good shot, because most of those teams are either around even with you or a little bit better, a little worse. There's not much separation there. And a possible, if it did happen, if Alabama did move on to beat Villanova in the round of 32 and go to the Sweet 16, they more likely play West Virginia or Wichita State. I'm thrilled if I'm Alabama, if I'm playing either of those two teams. I mean, Wichita State shouldn't scare Alabama. They've already beaten them once on the neutral court, albeit being 2 years ago. And West Virginia has problems scoring, even though they defend like crazy. But neither of those teams are just elite dynamite teams that that's going to make it to the Elite Eight. So, and if they came out of their top half of the bracket, I mean, you have Florida, which Alabama's already beaten by 18 on the road, so they're not going to be intimidated by them. And Arkansas played them close, and then Purdue and Texas Tech. I mean, neither of those would scare me, honestly, but the East is definitely the weakest side of the bracket to me, just because there's not but one conference champion from the Power 8 conferences. But it's going to be a tough matchup for first game against Vatech. Buzz Williams, one of my favorite college coaches. I respect the heck out of him. Always has his players coached well, even from his days in Marquette. And I mean, I just love the way he coaches enthusiastic. Isn't it going to be fun watching Buzz Williams and Avery Johnson coach their teams? I mean, both are just so enthusiastic in what they do, love their players, and just want the best out of them. And I'm thoroughly excited as a former coach to get to watch those two guys go at it on the court.
Again, you can watch Alabama take on Virginia Tech March 15th, which is Thursday at 9:20 Central Time on TNT. My name is Kyle Henderson. He's Jordan Harper for BamaInsider.com. You can catch all our coverage back on BamaInsider.com. Tony Tsoukalas has some great material. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Bone, always bringing it to you on the football recruiting front. From Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this is the BamaInsider.com podcast.